I'm Marc Acito. I'm co-writer of the book of Allegiance.
I'm Lorenzo Thione. I'm also one of the co-authors of the book.
I'm Jay Kuo. I'm the composer, lyricist, and a co-author of the book.
That is amazing. How do you feel about the premiere night here at East West Players' production of Allegiance?
Sure. It's amazing to see the show effectively coming home to Los Angeles. The journey that we embarked on to create the show was almost 9 years long to this year, and it began in 2008 when we actually first met George Takei, and the very first performance of songs from the show happened a few blocks away from here at the Japanese American National Museum. So it kind of feels like coming full circle, coming back home.
It's kind of full circle for George, too. You know, after the internment camps were done, his family moved back to Los Angeles, to downtown LA, not far from here. And so to be able to come back in triumph in this production and to tell this story is quite an amazing life story.
And what was it like for you being co-writer of the book?
It's a very emotional experience because it's a story that means... Sorry, that was my text going off. Yeah, an angel just got its wings. Writing the show has been an immensely inspiring experience. You know, the example of the Japanese American people, the fortitude or the philosophy that they lived by, gaman, to endure with dignity, is so inspiring to us. And I think it's changed the way everybody who works on the show lives.
I mentioned how long it took for the show to mature and grow and make it all the way first to San Diego, then to Broadway, and then here. In this time, there is only one song that has remained from the original score, from the original set of songs, almost 9-10 years ago, and that song is Gaman. The one that really embodies the spirit and the strength of not just the Japanese people, but also of the story.
What challenges did you have to experience to bring this to stage?
Wow, as first time creative team and producers, we had to raise a lot of money. We had to get a whole community behind the idea and to bring people together sort of one person at a time into the larger family of Allegiance. We went through multiple workshops and readings, world premiere in San Diego in 2012. Wow, it was every step of the way was a huge challenge, but also a huge, huge experience for all of us.
So we had to answer or address one thing that seemed like a recurring theme of people's sort of reaction when we first talked about this project, which was a musical about the story of the internment of Japanese Americans. Didn't seem like the immediate sort of theme for a show. And, in reality, what we always felt was this story is such a universal and important story with stakes so high, emotionally, as well as, that it felt like it could never be anything but a musical. And I often, had a favorite way of responding to people feeling like this could not be a good story, which is like, another story that doesn't sound like a perfect fit for a musical is a family escaping the Nazis in Austria. That worked out well.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think one of the bigger challenges that was a surprise to me coming into the project as a white guy, and I came to the project later in San Diego, is witnessing firsthand the discrimination against Asian Americans has been such a revelatory experience, because the microaggressions and the very subtle discriminations that happen don't necessarily get spoken about as much. And I was so honored. My name is Marc Acito, and I never would, in a million years, would have tried to tell a Japanese American story except that I was invited. And George Takei started calling me Marcus Ito, or Ito-san. So that's my Japanese honorific. And when they made me an honorary Asian, I felt really, really proud.
At the same time, this is the first Broadway musical where the director was a Japanese Canadian and the composer was an Asian American. And so we were making history as we were telling the story on Broadway.
Largely Asian American cast. It was the first time, yeah. In a lot of ways, the show broke barriers, and it was the first time that this story had been told, and the fact that it made it all the way to Broadway, and that now it can come home to Los Angeles and hopefully go even beyond. It's something we're very, very proud of.
Do you feel like this musical resonates with today's political climate?
I was going to mention this. You know, it's remarkable when we first learned and met George and learned about his background and got inspired to tell the story was 10 years ago, and it felt like the echoes and the memory of September 11 was still fairly recent. Like, we kind of felt like there was a relevance and a resonance because of that. And, you know, myself being an immigrant, I felt like I responded so much with the plight of the immigrant in general and feeling like that precarious situation. And we embarked on this journey. But we never imagined it would have felt so much more relevant politically 10 years later, now, when we actually opened on Broadway. It was in November 2015, and the primary election cycle was just getting heated up. And the then presidential candidate Trump and others made explicit references to the Japanese American internment as either justification or a precedent for how refugees needed to be treated or not welcomed, as well as sort of denying or claiming that they didn't know whether or not this was a good or a bad thing because they weren't there. We felt this was so absurd that we actually invited him to come and see the show. He, of course, never came, but we kept a chair open, a seat open for him every single night, with the reminder that every night he was missing a chance to actually learn how it was for these families to have gone through such horrible an experience for no other crime of looking like the people that had attacked the country.
Any last words for everyone?
I'm particularly thrilled to see a whole new cast bring this story to life. You know, and it shows that that no matter where we place the story, whether on the West Coast or the East Coast, it resonates with the audiences. People are really connecting, and so I'm just thrilled that they did such an amazing job. And I'm excited to be here at opening.
I'm really excited for people in LA to be able to not only experience this show and this story, but this cast, many of which actually came from our Broadway cast and decided that they wanted to keep going. We created such an incredible family with the people that came into this circle and be part of telling the story, and many of them led by George Takei, who was on Broadway and now gets to tell the story here in his own community, and many others, Elena Wang and Greg Watanabe and Scott Watanabe. So many of the people that were in the Broadway cast are now here, and they're joined by wonderful new artists. I'm really, really proud of what this cast has been able to do, so I'm excited.
Certainly, I would say just to people out there and about coming to see the show that, you know, George Takei, who is a national treasure and an inspiration to all of us, is on stage every night reliving the experience of being incarcerated by his own country. Now, from on the opposite end of it, playing an elder in that community. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see that happen. So, you know, I can't say for certain how many more productions George is going to do.
I'm going to say one last thing, which is I'm going to steal it from him because I heard him say this once, and it's a beautiful thought. We had the fortune of running for a few months on Broadway, and we had about 120,000 people being able to see the show on Broadway. Well, that number eerily mirrors the number of Japanese Americans who were affected by the internment. And so many of those people, just because so much time has passed, are now gone. So Marc, very poignantly pointed out that it's almost like every person that came and saw the show on Broadway now gets to speak, to be witness and testimony for one of the people that actually was interned. And we hope that people that come and see it here will be able to continue and bring witness to that important story.
Thank you.